Yama, everyone. So I'm really lucky to be here today. Oh, it's so hard because I go Professor Tom and then I go Uncle Tom and then it's just like, how would you like everyone to know you as? Or we can go, who just actually got one of the biggest order or medals recently?
Oh, yes. The Old Man Award, the Senior Australian of the Year, which was a
Oh,
real privilege. Yeah.
Uncle, I wasn't thinking like that at all. I was thinking about all your amazing research because did you know that I met you when I was probably 28 years old, 30 years old, so over 13 years ago, in my very beginning of my career, when there was a big conference around smoking cessation, and we're in Queensland, and I think my legs were shaking to go, oh my God, coming in as a Yibera woman and standing in next to one of the giants in the actual field and just thinking how awesome you are in itself. Just so blessed to be standing next to you. So I think it's just more of an award that I think you got, not just the Elder of the Year award. What I did before is I asked something a little bit different. What is it that's so important about today for you?
Oh, look, I think what's really important is the Girali Centre is organising this, and the reason why we're organising a Key Thinkers Forum, because it's an opportunity to sort of provoke some thinking, but also to showcase some of our researchers, and particularly Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander researchers in this field, and to be able to privilege the word of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, because too often we see research done about us, for us, but not with us. And so this is a great opportunity to say we have got some excellent researchers out there. People are doing great work in cutting edge fields, and this is no different. And what's interesting about this one is that it's about asthma, but it's also about our health, and it's about climate change. And what's really important is that we're going to really tease out what is asthma here, because I think too many of our mob, as with the general population, don't really understand enough about asthma and the impacts that it has, and particularly the impacts if you're not taking your medications properly or regularly, or not being assessed even. And that's the other big issue that we've got, is that people don't really present as to the clinics and so forth when they do have a respiratory challenge.
One thing that stood out for me just before when you were actually having a yarn with everyone was really around the social determinants and everything around, healing in ourselves. But the other component is that, there is so much research that's being done out there, and it's always at times where it's, historically been not with us, it's been about us, and really kind of pushing back in that space. And I just love you, advocating for even more, and especially around the ethics. I'm just curious if you could actually, do a quick summary around ethics and how that's changed with your influence in it.
Yeah, well, look, ethics is an important question, and it's a challenge for all researchers in a number of ways, because one is that even though they've got the NH and MRC ethical guidelines when we look at health issues, and but they should also apply for ARC grants and so forth. But we also have different bodies around the nation who are supporting ethical clearances, including universities. So some of the big challenges are that we need all universities to ensure when they're considering, and specifically if they're considering Indigenous ethics issues, that we have Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people on the panels. But I would argue that it should also apply for other research that's taking place that might not be Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander specific, because what we've got to do is to be able to encourage more and more of our mob to be able to see that there is a path forward in the research field. It's not just primary research, but it's about making those decisions about research. So we've got that bit of a challenge there. We've also got the issues and challenges around data sovereignty, which are pretty big, and we're doing some work on that at the moment. People like Professor Marcia Langton, Professor Maggie Waters are doing, and Professor Pat Dudgeon are all doing little aspects of work around data sovereignty, and that's important, because when we look at the national agreement on closing the gap, one of the key reforms in there was about access to data. So it's how do we, as Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander practitioners or researchers, get access to the big data that departments hold about us, so that we can make informed decisions and help guide the way that we direct our programs so that they have the maximum impact.
Absolutely, and I think it actually gives us a voice, right? So without a plug in any way, but it's like...
The voice. Well, you know, it's a really important one, and I think research is a good guide about how we, you know, we've been seeing for a long time that we don't want research done to us or for us, we want it done with us. And that's what the voice is all about, the national voice that's being discussed. And it's about Commonwealth legislation, it's about talking to the Commonwealth Parliament, and it's about the Australian Constitution, because, you know, in 1967, two things happened through the referendum there. One was that it enabled Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people to be counted in the census of each state and territory, which was very important, because prior to that we weren't counted as citizens of the nation, or as peoples of the nation, I should say. And the second thing is that it gave the Commonwealth responsibility for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander policies and programs. And so, you know, they've taken that literally and meant that they can develop programs for us. We're now saying, no, that wasn't always the intent. It's about doing it with us. And so let's change that whole discourse that's going on and make sure that we are a party to all of these discussions. And how do we influence governments? How do we influence the Parliament when it comes to considering legislation that impacts on Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, or the executive government, and that's the government of the day, including the bureaucrats? How do we work with them to help inform them about the best way to implement programs and policies before they get implemented, and then we say, gee whiz, they didn't work, we should have done it differently? Let's get on the front foot and say, let's design it properly so it has the best impact, because that's what's going to really, I guess, facilitate close the gap and achieving some of those goals when we know that they haven't been achieved in the past. But it also means that over time, and even in a short time, the more efficient we can get with our program delivery and development, the better off all Australians are going to be, because it's going to save money. It's going to mean that it's going to be less down the line costs and that sort of stuff. So yeah, look, I'd really encourage everybody to listen to what's being said about the voice, and when the time comes for going to the election in the referendum, really make an informed decision.
So I really loved actually having a yarn here with Uncle Tom today. One of the biggest things here I want to ask, which is a little bit from me just before we wrap up, because we've got a whole heap of people who want to come in, is what's one kind of advice that you would give for new researchers like myself coming into the field? What's one thing as mob that we can do to make sure that we have a long history and career in here and open up spaces for more mob to come in?
Well, I think, firstly, get to understand what Universities Australia Indigenous strategy is, Indigenous employment strategy, and be able to work with your PVCs, DVCs, Indigenous, to be able to have an impact and influence over policy. So become informed and be an informer, and that's really the important bit. And understand that we have a rightful place. We are gaining ground every day in the whole research field, and the research that we're doing is helping to guide us as a nation, but to remember that research, and there's many different forms of research, but I think for me the key thing is to be able to feed back to the community about what that research is about and how and why they should be involved. So yeah, look at what's already out there, look at some of those phenomenal researchers we've had, and learn from that.
Yeah, thank you so much, Uncle Tom. And also today what we've got the beautiful knowledge translation, Alira Moore in here as well, doing actual visual scribing. So we've got young mob coming in and actually being able to feed it back to our community as well in a visual manner so they can actually understand. So I can totally hear where you are. And I thank you so much for your time, and such a pleasure.